Do you really want to change your life? Because if you don't like where you are right now, inside of a federal prison or inside of a jail or going through some kind of a struggle that could lead you inside of a jail or a prison, you should start asking that question. Do you really want to change your life? Because it's easy to talk about wanting to change your life. It's not so easy to truly make the effort to really come out of that situation differently. My name is Michael Santos. I'm the founder of Prison Professors. And those were the kinds of questions that prompted my adjustment at the very start of my journey. And that journey began 35 years ago from when I'm filming this version of the Straight A Guide course. It was in August of 1987 that I went into the prison system, and I was in there for 9,500 days. But what made the difference is I learned from leaders who helped me ask different questions about not why I am here or why it's unfair or why I shouldn't be here, but rather, what can I do to make sure I'm never in this predicament again? Or what can I do to prepare myself so that when I get out, I have a better life? And that's why this course is called Preparing for Success After Prison. And now we're in this module where we're talking about awareness. You've heard me talk about the importance of the earlier modules that included, first of all, defining success by, stating the values by which we are going to live. Then setting clear goals that align with those values so that it makes it self-evident. Then making sure that we move forward with the right attitude, which is 100% commitment to success. Not as anybody else defines it, but as we define it through our values and goals. Then you've got to make sure that you have an aspiration. Don't see yourself where you are right now. Whether it's sitting in a solitary cell or wearing prison clothes or eating prison food, but rather, where are you going to be in the future? What's the best possible outcome? That's really what your aspiration is about. And that helps you really create this plan of saying, okay, what do I have to do to get from here, where I am, to where I want to go? And then if I know how I'm going to do that, if I understand the action steps that I have to take, I can really put priorities in place. I can develop my tools, tactics, and resources, and then I can execute the plan, holding myself accountable, which is the next module in our course, is accountability. But after we've done that, we come into this module that we're in right now, which is all about awareness, about keeping our head in the game, knowing where we want to go, and understanding how every single decision exposes us to either a new opportunity or a new threat. And doing that from inside of a prison requires enormous discipline. And developing that discipline can make all the difference in your life. One of the books that I created to help people is this one called Journals and Daily Lessons, or Journals and Lessons, or Daily Journal and Lessons. And this is only version 1. I have a lot of these versions where I encourage people to think about other people who've gone through challenging times and then write their reflections. What are they doing? Okay. And why would I ask somebody to write this journal? Well, that relates directly to this video that I am creating now in August of 2022. That helps you see the two different components of this module on awareness and keeping your head in the game. And I'm going to give you some examples of people who have done it. I'll start by saying what made a difference after I got out of prison and I sat in front of a case manager of a halfway house asking for a higher level of liberty. What made a difference? Well, it was that I was able to bring that case manager massive amounts of literature, right? That I'm holding up here on my desk that I created while I was in prison, right? Lots of literature. And what did all of this literature have in common? And this is only some of it, right? It had in common that I could show a pathway that I used to prepare for success. I wanted to let the case manager know that every day that I served it with an intention of preparing for success after release. And because I prepared, I could explain, opportunities opened for me that I wanted to seize with the unit team or with the case manager's support. And the case manager really opened up those opportunities for me, which allowed me to go on and build an entrepreneurial career. It allowed me to get a higher level of liberty at an earlier time. And it allowed me to really seize initiatives that would launch my career over the next, well, it's really been 10 years. I say 9 because I finished my obligation to the Bureau of Prisons in 2013, in August of August of 2013, but I transitioned from prison to a halfway house in August of 12. And right away when I got there, I was able to show all of this work to the people that had influence over me and make an impression upon them. That's what this module is about. It's about keeping your head in the game, in recognizing what can I do while I am here, so that I can open new opportunities, and how can I use those opportunities to build something higher. So to do that, I have to not only become aware of opportunities that I can create or seize, but I have to make the world aware of me. And if I can make the world aware of me, those people, I can build a support network, and that support network can assist me in growing. And that's really the strategy that had enormous influence. But I can't just say I'm going to be aware of opportunities to seize from the beginning. At the end, I've got to start from the beginning. Just like you have to start right now. You have to start thinking about where are you going to be in the months, years, decades ahead. And in order to convey that story best of how somebody has done that, I really want to tell the story of my friend Halim Flowers. Halim Flowers is one of these fellas who had a real challenge. He grew up in a pathway of adversity. He grew up in inner city Washington, D.C. By the time he was a teenager, he was heavily involved in gangs. And authorities charged him with murder, I think 2 murders. And as a 16-year-old, he went to prison with 2 life sentences. But when he went to prison, Halim realized he wanted to transform his life. And instead of adjusting poorly, he began looking for opportunities to grow, to become more aware of his environment and what he can do to make things better. And to make things better, he had to create opportunities for himself. He had to differentiate himself. He had to educate himself. And that's what he did. And I interviewed him on this program and I want to share with you some of I'm going to weave this into the entire awareness section. So you can watch an interview I did with Halim, because I think it can be helpful to you. I think it can help you see, how do I keep my head in the game while I'm going through enormous challenges and enormous struggle in my life. The more you learn from somebody like him, the stronger you become in saying, I can overcome challenges myself. But here's the short version of events with Halim. And I got this, not only you'll see his story on the video, but this is some of the behind the scenes story. So Halim was inside of a federal prison, a high security penitentiary, probably in his 15th, 16th, 17th year of the sentence, when he and I started our connection. We started our connection because a warden in that prison recommended that Halim go through this very course that you're going through right now, preparing for success after prison. And the course touched Halim in such a way that he wanted to really model his success after release on what I had done after my release. And he saw the work that I did while I was in prison and how I used that work to catapult myself into building a strong support network and having other people invest in me because they wanted to see me grow, just like other people want you to see you grow. But if you want other people to invest in you, you've got to give them the tools they can use that will motivate them and inspire them to invest in you. So after reading stories about how I built businesses and careers and got married while I was in prison, Halim decided that he was going to use all of the work that he had done during his first 16, 17, 18 years of imprisonment to open new opportunities. And he learned about fellowships and that there were organizations outside that sponsored people that really worked hard on personal development. Well, when he applied for fellowships, he didn't know that he was going to get out of prison. But the Supreme Court issued a ruling changing the way that judges could, or changing the law for juveniles who were sentenced to life in prison. The new ruling required judges to reevaluate a juvenile and make sure that incarceration is important going forward or still serves the interests of justice. Has the person grown? Because the juvenile mind obviously is not as mature as an adult mind. Well, Halim was like 16 years old when he went to prison. He was 16 when he committed those crimes, and he had grown a lot during 16 or 17 years of prison. So when the Supreme Court law changed, lawyers represented him, and he was released from prison. A judge released him from prison. And that judge released him from prison just a few days before this fellowship that he applied for was issuing its final decision. So with his new liberty, Halim went to New York City to appear in person at the fellowship hearing, and he told them his story, and everybody looked at it as in amazement of the fact that he had just gotten out of prison after 22 years, and he had so much, he accomplished so much, writing books and telling a story about the injustices of mass incarceration, that he received a fellowship. In fact, he received 2 fellowships, which totaled more than $50,000. And those $50,000 allowed Halim to start building his life. And how was he building his life? Well, he was leveraging all of the relationships that he had made while he was in prison. He was selling books that he wrote. He published a number of books while he was in prison, and he was just going around selling these books. And he had an opportunity to sell those books at the Apple Store in Union Square, San Francisco. So he traveled from Washington, D.C. to San Francisco, and he's offering his books for sale. And some guy in the audience that he doesn't know, and that doesn't know him, but the guy's moved by all of the work that Halim did. And the guy asked Halim, he said, "I'm really impressed with what you've done here." He said, "What else are you doing?" And Halim said, I'm painting, and I'm trying to really illustrate the injustices of mass incarceration and how it afflicts people of color, and what we can do better as a society. They used to call me a super predator, and now I'm branding it all as I've used my time in prison to transform from being a super predator to being a superhero. And the guy said, "Well, how many paintings do you have?" And Halim said, "Well, I have 11 that I've got, in various stages of development. They're almost all ready to bring to market. I haven't sold any yet." And the guy said, "Well, I'll take all 11. And Halim said, "Well, they're $2,500 a piece." And the guy said, "That's fine. I'll take all 11. And, Halim was kind of blown away, he said. And then the guy said to him, "By the way, do you like basketball?" And Halim said, "Yeah, I like basketball." He said, "Well, you want to go to the Warriors game with me?" And Halim said, "Nah, I don't think I want to go to the Warriors game." And he said, "Why?" The guy asked him, he said, "Why not?" And Halim said, "I don't really like the Warriors, and I got to get back." He said, and the guy said, "Well, who do you like?" And Halim said, "Well, I like the Lakers." And the guy said, "Okay, well, Lakers are coming to town in a couple of weeks. Why don't I buy you a ticket? Come back out from D.C. to L.A. You can stay to San Francisco. You can stay at my house, and we'll go to the Warriors-Lakers game." I said, "All right, that's cool. I can do that." And the guy then said, "By the way, I own the Golden State Warriors." And, this is, there's a great story there of what happens, right? You never know who you are going to influence and how that person can become a mentor to you. But if you work really hard, you put yourself in the position to bring leaders like that into your life. And so Halim describes the story further of how he came out to San Francisco and he stayed in this guy's amazing home right at the on the shore at near the Golden Gate Bridge. And Halim had been in prison for so long, he couldn't see water. I remember what that was like, where I was in prison and I couldn't see water for 26 years. And it's such an amazing experience to see a body of water when you've been confined in cells for decades. And Halim said that he was making his morning prayer. He's a devout Muslim. And as he was making his prayer in this waterfront home, and he said, I just, had to cry because I couldn't believe where I was. And that evening, he said they went to the Warriors game, and the guy sat next to him in a box seat. And he said, Halim, I want you to look around here, and I want you to know something. Everybody here is at the top of their game. You're on Billionaires Row right here. And he said, those athletes out there on the court, they're the best in the world at what they do. But I want to give you a piece of advice. You should never feel intimidated, ever, by being around these kinds of people. Because you've characterized yourself in such a way, doing so much while you were in prison, that you are one of these people. And then the leader said to him, I want you to know I didn't buy those paintings from you out of some gift of charity. I'm not a charity guy. I'm an investor, and I believe in you. And I believe you are going to be more valuable in the years to come than you are right now. Those 11 paintings that I bought for $2,500 a piece, I believe they will be worth more in the future than they are now. And now Halim Flowers is an insanely successful artist. During his first year of becoming an artist, he sold more than $1 million worth of paintings. And those paintings are sold in the best galleries in the country, from Boston to Palm Beach, and even as far away as in England, where the Queen of England commissioned one of his paintings to commemorate her many decades on the throne. And so all of this, I tell this story with giving you hope. Here was a young guy who went to prison serving 2 life sentences when he was only a teenager. But instead of giving up hope, he spent his time working to learn and working to grow and working to become the best in the world at something. And that's a question that I have for you. What are you doing to demonstrate, to build a body of work to show you are the best in the world at what you do? How are you documenting that? Because that is a strategy for you to keep your head in the game. That is how you stay aware of opportunities that you can seize at any given moment. It is how you stay aware of opportunities that may not even exist, but that you can create through your own ingenuity and creativity. But the harder you work at that, the more other people in the world are going to become aware of you. And you don't know who those people are right now. But what you do know is that you have the power today to influence people you are going to meet in the future. And that is what this module on awareness is all about. Now, although I'm not a great video editor, I'm just a guy that served a lot of time in prison and has had to use my time to learn how to develop skills on using cameras and video editing equipment and audio editing equipment and lighting and all of these other things. So I want to use these tools with hopes of bringing you more of the story of Halim Flowers. Because I think that you don't need to only hear from me, you need to hear from him and what others have said about him to really understand this concept of awareness. So I'm going to break right here and let you watch some of this story unfold in his own words and in the words of others. He went through decades in prison, but that never killed his hope. In fact, this man became a superhero. He's a hero to me. And if you're serving time or going into the system, you need to see what excellence looks like. You're going to get an opportunity to see it because he's done so many amazing things since he's been home. Halim Flowers, welcome to the Prison Professors program. I'm just so grateful to have you on our show.
Thank you, Mike. I'm blessed and honored to finally be here.
Yeah, because it's been a long, long journey. And I'd like to give just a little bit of backstory here on why this show took place. I searched through my inbox, and I saw that he had corresponded with me years ago when he was still in prison. Tell us about that, how you and I came into contact, Halim.
Similar to your story, when you was in prison, being punished for doing the right thing. And DC legislators in 2016, I was able to get them through my life story to change the resentencing laws and respect the juveniles getting life sentences in the District of Columbia. So as soon as the law was enacted, as a punishment to me, the Federal Bureau of Prisons sent me from West Virginia, which is closer to DC, and I was in a FCI institution, and they sent me to a USP in Atwater, California. So like as soon as the law passed and I was going to need to have access to my attorneys and my mitigation specialists as a punishment, they sent me back to a high security prison in California, just as you were sent to Colorado. And that's when it was a blessing because, I know everything happens for a reason. And when I got there, the warden, I forgot the warden's name at this
Andre
time.
Matavusian.
Yeah. He was pushing your program at that time. And one of the guys that had attended your university, he had a copy of some of your books. And I was able to read your books. And that's how your email was in the book, and I emailed you.
Started in Lewisburg. I went through Lewisburg. That was a super volatile spot. What was your experience like in Lewisburg? As a young boy, I mean, you were only when you were in Lewisburg, you were only about 20 years old? 21. I was like, the first time I was in Lewisburg, I think I was probably 25. What was your experience like at 21? I know there was a lot of DC guys there.
Yeah, it was a lot for me, by the time I had got to Ferguson, I had been in by the time I got to Lewisburg, I had been in for 5 years.
Right.
So for me, the most volatile institution was at DC jail, the juvenile tier. Mm-hmm. All guys under 18, everybody facing life sentence. That's when we filmed the Thug Life in DC documentary that ended up being aired on HBO and won an Emmy Award in 1998. But that was the most volatile, the most violent environment. So by the time I left the DC jail juvenile tier, when I went to Lorton when I was 17, I already was seasoned in the volatility of prison. So, and then after Lorton, going to Lewisburg, it just was like,
another part of the journey.
Just another part of the journey. I knew I was 5 years in. I knew how to conduct myself. I always was like a little old man. So when I got to Lewisburg, I just was like, just getting introduced to like financial literacy and like really being invested in it. So my thing when I got to Lewisburg, I was like, I want to go to the feds and I just want to learn about all different people, all different religions, anybody from anywhere but DC. So I hung with anybody but people from DC. Nobody knew I was from DC. Everybody thought I was from Philly. I just did a self-portrait. And one of the things I put was super predator. I was incarcerated at the age of 16 and given 2 life sentences. For me, growing up during the crack era, the culture is calling young black boys fatherless, godless, jobless.
We have predators on our streets.
They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are super predatories.
In a hyper-capitalist society like America, poverty is just violent. It was so easy for us to destroy each other. You find yourself inside of a cage as a child. It's not meant for me to be around any people, places, or things that I love. I was alone with all of my pain. But my childhood friend, Mama Lou Stewart, is a rapper. And just being around him, I just started like freestyle rapping.
Come on, baby. Go ahead, man. Rap like to me, a little SG.
He gave me that seed to blossom into poetry. I was liberated. I learned how to love myself. That's what I needed to become an artist. When I go to the canvas, there's something that I had to say that was meant for the world to see. My life is an example of the potential that lays dormant inside of these walls. You have so much genius right here, and it's just dormant. I'm fighting for y'all on the outside. I love y'all. People want you to run away from your past. They said that we were super predators. I'm turning this into a superhero who loves unconditionally. There's power in that.
Now, from Halim's story, I hope that you find hope, because regardless of what you are going through right now, you can learn from other people who've gone through similar experiences and came out with their dignity intact and with opportunities to prosper and thrive at an unbelievable world-class level. You can do the same thing as well. My name is Michael Santos. I'm with Prison Professors, and I really encourage you to continue your efforts of preparing for success after release. It's not me that's saying you can do it. Listen to all of the leaders we've profiled through this course and then work on you. Thanks so much for being a part of our community.